Chapter 1. The Quiet Pain of Chasing. There is a kind of tiredness that sleep cannot fix. It does not come from working too hard. It does not come from walking too far. It does not even come from carrying something heavy in your hands. It comes from carrying someone in your mind who is not carrying you the same way. You keep checking. You keep waiting. You keep wondering. You keep replaying the last conversation. You keep reading the same message again, searching for a hidden meaning that may not exist. You keep asking yourself why the energy changed. You keep trying to understand why someone who once felt close now feels distant. And the painful part is this: you may not even be chasing them with your feet. You may be chasing them silently, chasing them through your thoughts, chasing them through your expectations, chasing them through your imagination, chasing them through the hope that one day they will finally become clear, chasing them through the desire to return to a version of the relationship that may have existed only for a short season. This is one of the most exhausting forms of attachment. The body stays still, but the mind keeps running. Running behind explanations. Running behind approval. Running behind attention. Running behind reassurance. Running behind a person who may not even know how much space they occupy inside you. At first, chasing feels like love. You tell yourself you care. You tell yourself you are loyal. You tell yourself you do not give up easily. You tell yourself that if you try a little harder, explain a little better, wait a little longer, give a little more, then maybe the distance will disappear. But after a while, chasing stops feeling like love. It starts feeling like losing yourself. You become too available, too alert, too sensitive to small changes, too affected by someone else's mood, too dependent on whether they reply, call, notice, apologize, explain, or choose you. Their silence becomes louder than your own inner voice. Their distance becomes stronger than your own self-respect. Their inconsistency becomes the weather inside your mind. And slowly, without noticing it, you begin to live in reaction to them. If they reply warmly, you feel peaceful. If they reply coldly, you feel anxious. If they give attention, you feel valuable. If they withdraw, you feel unwanted. If they explain, you breathe. If they disappear, your mind begins another war. This is not peace. This is emotional dependence. And emotional dependence does not always look dramatic from the outside. Sometimes it looks like a normal person holding a phone and pretending everything is fine. But inside there is a storm. A storm of questions. Why did they change? Did I do something wrong? Should I say something? Should I wait? Should I leave? What if they come back? What if I am overthinking? What if I lose them forever? What if I never find this feeling again? When you are attached to uncertainty, confusion begins to feel normal. You begin to accept small pieces of attention as if they are full love. You begin to excuse inconsistency because you are afraid of facing the truth. You begin to lower your standards just to keep access. You begin to make yourself smaller so the connection does not break. You begin to silence your needs because you are afraid your needs will push them away. But listen carefully. A connection that requires you to abandon yourself in order to keep it is already costing too much. Real connection should not make you beg for basic respect. It should not make you question your worth every night. It should not make you feel like you are always one message away from peace and one silence away from pain. It should not require you to solve the mystery of someone's emotions just to feel safe. The right energy may not always be perfect, but it will not constantly make you feel like you are chasing a door that keeps closing. The pain of chasing is not only that someone is distant. The deeper pain is that while chasing them, you become distant from yourself. You stop asking, "What do I need?" You start asking, "What will make them stay?" You stop asking, "Is this healthy for me?" You start asking, "How can I fix this?" You stop asking, "Do I feel respected?" You start asking, "How can I become easier to choose?" This is how chasing quietly changes a person. It takes the center of your life and places it in someone else's hands. You may still smile. You may still work. You may still talk to people. You may still act normal. But internally, you are waiting. Waiting for a sign. Waiting for clarity. Waiting for a reply. Waiting for an apology. Waiting for proof that you matter. Waiting for the person who created confusion to become the person who gives you peace. And sometimes, the hardest truth to accept is that the person who keeps you confused may never be the person who brings you peace. Because peace does not come from someone giving you attention once in a while. Peace comes from consistency, from clarity, from respect, from emotional safety, from knowing that you do not have to beg for the same energy you freely give. There is nothing wrong with caring deeply. Caring is human. Loving is human. Wanting to be chosen is human. Missing someone is human. Feeling attached is human. But losing yourself while trying to be chosen is not love. It is self-abandonment. And self-abandonment often feels noble in the beginning. You tell yourself, "I am just being patient." But sometimes patience becomes permission for someone to keep hurting you. You tell yourself, "I am just understanding." But sometimes understanding becomes an excuse to ignore your own pain. You tell yourself, "I am just loyal." But sometimes loyalty becomes a cage when it is given to someone who does not protect it. You tell yourself, "I am just giving them time." But sometimes time becomes another way of delaying the truth. The truth may be painful, but it is also freeing. You should not have to chase what is meant to meet you. You should not have to beg for what should be offered with care. You should not have to constantly translate silence into hope. You should not have to turn confusion into patience just because your heart is afraid to let go. The person, opportunity, friendship, relationship, or dream that is truly aligned with your life will still require effort. But it will not require you to destroy your dignity. Effort is healthy when it is mutual. Effort becomes suffering when it is one-sided. There is a difference between building something and dragging something. Building requires two hands. Dragging usually means you are the only one pulling. Ask yourself honestly, am I building this connection, or am I dragging it? Am I being patient, or am I avoiding the truth? Am I loving, or am I losing myself? Am I choosing this, or am I afraid to let it end? These questions may hurt, but they also wake you up. Because the moment you realize you are chasing what is not chasing you, you stand at a powerful doorway. One side is the old pattern: waiting, explaining, overthinking, accepting less, trying harder, lowering standards, calling uncertainty love. The other side is self-respect. Pausing, observing, returning to yourself, letting actions speak, choosing peace over potential, walking away when your heart keeps being asked to survive on crumbs. Most people do not stay attached because the situation is healthy. They stay attached because letting go feels like losing the imagined future. They are not only attached to the person, they are attached to what they hoped the person would become. They are attached to the first version, the sweet version, the attentive version, the version that made them feel special, the version that said the right words. the version that opened the door before slowly becoming the wall. So they chase the memory. They chase the beginning. They chase the potential. They chase the rare good moments. They chase the feeling they had before confusion arrived. But a few beautiful moments cannot always justify a painful pattern. A person can give you a good memory and still not be good for your peace. A person can have potential and still not have the maturity to love you properly. A person can be important to your story and still not belong in your future. This is hard to accept because the heart loves to argue with reality. The heart says, but they were different before. Reality says, but this is who they are showing now. The heart says, but maybe they will change. Reality says, but how long will you abandon yourself while waiting? The heart says, but I miss them. Reality says, missing someone does not mean they are healthy for you. The heart says, but I do not want to lose them. Reality says, you are already losing yourself. This is the moment where maturity begins. Maturity is not pretending you do not care. Maturity is admitting that you care and still choosing what protects your peace. Maturity is not becoming cold. Maturity is no longer using your warmth as a reason to accept emotional hunger. Maturity is not saying, I never needed them. Maturity is saying, I wanted them, but I cannot keep chasing someone who keeps making me forget my worth. That sentence changes everything. Because when you stop chasing, you begin to feel the ache of withdrawal. At first, it may feel like loneliness. It may feel like silence. It may feel like you made a mistake. It may feel like your hand wants to reach for the phone. It may feel like your mind wants to create excuses for why you should try one more time. But do not confuse withdrawal with truth. When you stop giving energy to something that trained your nervous system to wait, your body may panic. Not because the situation was right, but because the pattern was familiar. Familiar pain can feel safer than unfamiliar peace. This is why some people return to what hurts them. Not because it is healthy, but because the mind knows how to survive there. Peace feels strange when chaos has been home for too long. But if you stay with yourself long enough, peace will begin to feel normal. Your breathing will change. Your thoughts will slow down. Your standards will return. Your inner voice will become louder than their silence. Your life will begin to feel like it belongs to you again. And one day, you will realize something powerful. You are not weak for caring. You are not foolish for hoping. You are not wrong for loving deeply. But you were tired because you kept pouring yourself into a place that did not know how to hold you. And now you are learning to stop. Not with hatred, not with drama, not with revenge, but with quiet self-respect. The kind that says, I will not chase clarity from someone who keeps choosing confusion. I will not beg for attention from someone who gives it only when I pull away. I will not shrink my needs to keep someone comfortable. I will not call inconsistency love just because I am afraid of being alone. I will not keep reaching for someone who keeps teaching me to doubt myself. This is where your power begins to return. Not when they choose you, when you choose yourself. Chapter 2. Why you keep holding on. Letting go sounds simple until the heart is involved. People say, move on. People say, forget them. People say, stop thinking about it. People say, you deserve better. And maybe they are right. But the heart does not release attachment just because the mind receives good advice. If letting go were only a matter of logic, many people would have been free long ago. They know the situation is hurting them. They know the effort is one-sided. They know the pattern is not healthy. They know the person is inconsistent. They know they are losing peace. And still they hold on. Not because they are stupid. Not because they are weak. Not because they have no self-respect. They hold on because attachment is not only a thought. It is emotional memory. Your body remembers how they made you feel in the beginning. Your mind remembers the words they said. Your heart remembers the possibility. Your nervous system remembers the excitement, the hope, the warmth, the sudden feeling that maybe this person was different. And once the mind has tasted possibility, it can become addicted to trying to recover it. This is why inconsistent people can be so hard to release. If someone is always cold, eventually you understand. If someone is always disrespectful, eventually the truth becomes obvious. If someone never gives anything good, the heart may hurt, but the mind can see clearly. But inconsistency is confusing. Sometimes they are warm. Sometimes they are distant. Sometimes they care. Sometimes they disappear. Sometimes they speak like you matter. Sometimes they act like you are optional. Sometimes they make you feel chosen. Sometimes they make you feel foolish for believing it. This unpredictable pattern creates emotional hunger. You begin to crave the good version. You begin to wait for the return of the warmth. You begin to think, maybe today will be different. You begin to accept the low moments because you are addicted to the high moments. This is not love in its healthiest form. This is intermittent hope. A little affection. A little distance. A little apology. A little confusion. A little attention. A little silence. Enough to keep you attached. Not enough to make you secure. And when security is missing, the mind starts working overtime. You analyze tone. You analyze timing. You analyze messages. You analyze what they posted. You analyze what they did not say. You analyze whether they are busy or avoiding you. You analyze whether you are asking too much or finally seeing the truth. This analysis feels like control. But most of the time, it is suffering in disguise. Because no amount of overthinking can create consistency in someone who is not choosing it. You cannot think someone into maturity. You cannot explain someone into commitment. You cannot love someone into clarity. You cannot chase someone into valuing you. They may respond for a while. They may become warmer when they feel you pulling away. They may give just enough to keep the door open. But if the pattern does not change, you are not being chosen. You are being maintained. Being maintained is not the same as being loved. Maintained means someone gives enough energy to keep access to you, but not enough responsibility to make you feel safe. They do not fully show up, but they do not fully leave. They do not give clarity, but they do not let you move on peacefully. They keep you near enough to feel connected, but far enough to avoid accountability. And the more you accept that, the more you begin to confuse anxiety with attachment. You think the strong feeling means love. But sometimes the strong feeling is not love. Sometimes it is fear. Fear of losing. Fear of being replaced. Fear of being forgotten. Fear of starting again. Fear that nobody else will make you feel that way. Fear that if you let go now, all the pain will have been for nothing. This is one reason people keep holding on. They want the pain to become meaningful. They think, after everything I went through, this cannot end like this. So they stay longer. Not because the present is peaceful, but because the past was expensive. They have invested time, emotion, hope, patience, forgiveness, energy, versions of themselves, private tears no one saw. So walking away feels like losing the investment. But sometimes the greatest loss is not walking away. The greatest loss is continuing to invest in a place that keeps making you pour in peace. Imagine pouring water into a cracked vessel. At first, you think you simply need more water. So you pour more love, more patience, more understanding, more explanations, more chances. But the vessel is cracked, not because your water is not good enough, not because your effort is not sincere, but because the place you are pouring into cannot hold what you are giving. At some point, wisdom asks, will I keep blaming myself for the emptiness, or will I finally notice the crack? Many people never notice the crack because they are too busy trying to become enough. They think if they were more attractive, the person would stay. If they were more patient, the person would change. If they were more interesting, the person would choose them. If they were less emotional, the person would open up. If they were more understanding, the relationship would become stable. This is how chasing damages identity. You begin to believe their lack of effort is evidence of your lack of worth. But another person's inability to value you does not reduce your value. A person can fail to see gold and still not turn gold into stone. Their blindness is not your definition. The fact that someone did not choose you with clarity does not mean you are not worth choosing. The fact that someone did not handle your heart carefully does not mean your heart is too much. The fact that someone kept you confused does not mean you are hard to love. The fact that someone could not meet you deeply does not mean you should become shallow. Sometimes people can only meet you at the depth they have met themselves. If they avoid their own emotions, they may avoid yours. If they fear responsibility, they may fear commitment. If they do not know how to communicate, they may create confusion. If they are used to receiving without giving, they may treat your effort as normal while offering little in return. This is not your job to fix. You can support someone. You can communicate. You can be patient. You can give grace. But you cannot become the emotional training ground for someone who refuses to grow. Support is healthy when both people are growing. Support becomes self-harm when one person keeps bleeding while the other refuses to learn. You hold on because you see potential. But potential is not the same as presence. Potential says they could be. Presence says they are. Potential says maybe one day. Presence says look at today. Potential is a picture in your mind. Presence is a pattern in your life. A person may have the potential to love better. But if they are not choosing to love better, you are not in a relationship with their potential. You are in a relationship with their pattern. And patterns tell the truth more clearly than promises. A promise can be emotional. A pattern is evidence. A person can say they care and still act carelessly. They can say they miss you and still not show up. They can say you matter and still make you feel optional. They can say they will change and still repeat the same wound. Words can open hope. Patterns reveal reality. This is why you must learn to trust behavior more than intensity. Intense apologies are not the same as change. Intense conversations are not the same as clarity. Intense chemistry is not the same as compatibility. Intense longing is not the same as love. Intense pain is not proof that you should stay. Sometimes intensity only means your nervous system is activated. Peace may feel less dramatic, but it is healthier. Security may feel less exciting, but it is deeper. Consistency may feel less addictive, but it is safer. A part of you may resist peace, because peace does not create the same emotional high as uncertainty. But you were not created to live in constant suspense. You were not created to wonder where you stand every week. You were not created to audition for care. You were not created to wait by the door of someone's inconsistency. You were not created to beg someone to treat your heart like it matters. You hold on because letting go feels like entering the unknown. But sometimes the unknown is safer than the pattern you already know is hurting you. The known pain says, "At least I understand this." The unknown peace says, "You have not met me yet." Most people choose familiar pain over unfamiliar freedom. They return to what hurts because at least the hurt has a shape. They know how the cycle works. They know when to expect distance. They know how to apologize for needs. They know how to survive on small hope. Freedom feels strange because it has no drama to manage. When you stop chasing, you may suddenly have empty space. No person to decode. No message to wait for. No emotional puzzle to solve. No chaos to organize. At first, that emptiness may feel like loneliness. But it is not emptiness. It is room. Room to hear yourself again. Room to rebuild standards. Room to breathe without waiting. Room to feel your own life returning. Room for people who do not require you to abandon yourself. Letting go is not always a single decision. Sometimes it is a daily return. You wake up and choose not to reach. You feel the urge and choose not to chase. You remember the good moments and choose to remember the pattern too. You miss them and choose not to turn missing into movement. You feel weak and choose not to make a permanent decision from temporary pain. This is not easy. But every time you do not chase, you rebuild self-trust. You tell yourself, "I can feel the ache and still protect my peace. I can miss someone and still not return to confusion. I can care without losing myself. I can want closure without begging for it. I can accept that something mattered and still let it end." That is strength, not the strength that pretends nothing hurts. The strength that feels the hurt and still chooses dignity. Chapter 3. The Power of Emotional Detachment. Detachment is often misunderstood. Some people think detachment means you stop caring. They think it means you become cold. They think it means you shut down, build walls, and never let anyone close again. But real detachment is not emotional death. Real detachment is emotional freedom. It is the ability to care without being controlled, to love without begging, to give without losing yourself, to miss someone without running back to what broke your peace, to want something without making it the center of your identity. Detachment does not mean, "I feel nothing." It means, "I feel this, but I will not let it rule me." That difference is everything. A detached person can still have a soft heart. They can still be kind. They can still communicate. They can still hope. They can still be open to connection. But they do not hand their stability to another person's inconsistency. They do not allow every silence to become a crisis. They do not allow every delay to become rejection. They do not allow every mixed signal to become a mission. They do not allow every emotional wave to become a command. Detachment is not a wall. It is a boundary around your inner world. It says, "You may matter to me, but you will not control me. I may care about your presence, but I will not collapse in your absence. I may listen to your words, but I will trust your pattern. I may miss the connection, but I will not betray myself to keep it." This is the quiet power of emotional detachment. It returns ownership of your peace back to you. When you are attached in an unhealthy way, your mind keeps asking, "What are they doing? Are they thinking about me? Are they avoiding me? Are they with someone else? Are they coming back?" Are they going to explain? But detachment changes the question. It asks, what am I doing to myself by waiting like this? What part of me is asking for proof from someone who keeps giving confusion? What truth am I avoiding because hope feels safer? What would I choose if I already believed I was enough? These questions bring you home, because chasing always moves your attention outward. Detachment brings your attention inward, not in a selfish way, in a healing way. You begin to notice your own body, your own anxiety, your own needs, your own standards, your own patterns, your own wounds. You stop making the other person the entire subject of your healing. You begin to understand that the deepest work is not making them choose you. The deepest work is understanding why you kept choosing them over yourself. This is not blame. It is awareness. Awareness says, something in me was willing to accept uncertainty because I feared loss. Something in me confused intensity with love. Something in me believed I had to earn consistency. Something in me tolerated less because I was attached to potential. Something in me kept negotiating with reality because the truth was painful. When you see this clearly, you can begin to heal it. The first step of detachment is to stop feeding the pattern. A pattern survives through participation. If someone gives confusion and you keep chasing clarity, the pattern continues. If someone withdraws and you panic, the pattern continues. If someone gives little and you give more, the pattern continues. If someone disrespects your boundary and you keep explaining, the pattern continues. Detachment begins when you stop playing your old role. You do not need to announce it loudly. You simply stop feeding what drains you. You stop sending paragraphs to people who only respond with fragments. You stop trying to prove your heart to people who keep mishandling it. You stop offering emotional access to someone who uses it without responsibility. You stop treating inconsistency like a puzzle you are supposed to solve. The moment you stop participating in your own confusion, clarity begins. Not because the other person suddenly changes. Because you finally stop arguing with what their pattern already revealed. Another part of detachment is learning to let silence speak. When someone is silent, your old self may want to fill the gap. With messages, with questions, with explanations, with emotional reaching, with assumptions, with fear. But detachment says, let silence be information. A person's silence may not tell the whole story, but repeated silence tells you something. A person's lack of effort may not explain every detail, but repeated lack of effort tells you something. A person's avoidance may have reasons, but repeated avoidance tells you something. You do not always need another conversation to understand the pattern. Sometimes the absence of effort is the answer. Sometimes confusion is the answer. Sometimes inconsistency is the answer. Sometimes the way someone handles your heart is the answer. This is difficult because the mind wants a clear sentence. It wants someone to say, I do not value this enough. It wants someone to admit, I am not ready. It wants someone to confess, I liked your energy, but I did not want responsibility. It wants the truth spoken directly. But many truths are not spoken. They are demonstrated. If you only accept truth when it arrives as a sentence, you may ignore truth when it arrives as behavior. Detachment teaches you to stop waiting for people to confess what their patterns already show. This does not make you bitter. It makes you observant. You can accept reality without hating the person. You can stop chasing without attacking them. You can choose distance without wishing them harm. You can let go without turning love into anger. This is mature detachment. It does not need revenge. It does not need them to suffer. It does not need to prove who was right. It does not need a dramatic ending. It simply says, I understand enough to choose peace. That sentence is powerful because some people keep suffering because they think they need complete understanding before they can leave. They want to know why. Why did they change? Why did they promise? Why did they come close? Why did they disappear? Why did they act like they cared? Why did they not choose clearly? But sometimes the answers you want will not give you the peace you need. Even if they explained everything, you would still have to heal. Even if they apologized, you would still have to rebuild. Even if they admitted the truth, you would still have to decide whether the pattern is acceptable. Closure is not always information. Sometimes closure is accepting that the situation did not give you what your heart needed. Sometimes closure is no longer arguing with that fact. The next step of detachment is emotional discipline. When the urge comes, pause. The urge to check. The urge to message. The urge to explain. The urge to look for signs. The urge to ask one more question. The urge to reopen a door that already hurt you. Do not shame the urge. The urge is not proof that you are weak. It is proof that your attachment is still healing. But you do not have to obey every urge. You can say, I feel like reaching out, but I will wait. I feel like checking, but I will return to myself. I feel like explaining, but I have already explained enough. I feel like chasing, but I will not abandon my peace. This is how detachment becomes practical. Not by pretending you are above emotion. By choosing your behavior while emotion is present. A powerful practice is the 24-hour rule. When you want to send an emotional message, wait 24 hours. Not because your feelings do not matter, but because feelings often become clearer with space. If the message is still necessary tomorrow, you can send it more calmly. If the message was only an emotional wave, time will reveal it. Many messages are not communication. They are attempts to reduce anxiety. There is a difference. Communication seeks clarity. Anxiety seeks immediate relief. Communication is calm enough to hear the answer. Anxiety is desperate for a specific response. Communication respects your dignity. Anxiety often sacrifices it. Before you send the message, ask, am I speaking from clarity, or am I trying to escape discomfort? Will I respect this message tomorrow? Have I already said this before? Is this person capable of responding with maturity? Am I opening a door that my peace worked hard to close? These questions can save you from repeating old cycles. Another practice is to stop romanticizing the rare good moments. When you miss someone, the mind often edits the story. It shows you the best scenes. The laughter, the warmth, the attention, the beginning, the words that sounded beautiful, the feeling of being wanted. But if you are going to remember, remember honestly. Remember the confusion too. Remember the anxiety too. Remember the waiting too. Remember the nights you questioned your worth. Remember the times you needed clarity and received silence. Remember the moments you made excuses for behavior that hurt you. Remember how small you felt while trying to be chosen. This is not to create resentment. It is to restore balance. You cannot heal from a pattern while only remembering the part that made you attached. Detachment needs truth. The whole truth. Not just the beautiful beginning. Not just the painful ending. The full pattern. When you see the full pattern, your heart may still hurt, but your mind becomes stronger. You begin to understand. I am not walking away from one beautiful moment. I am walking away from a pattern that costs my peace. That realization gives you strength. Because sometimes you do not need more anger to leave. You need more honesty. Honesty is cleaner than anger. Anger can push you away for a few days. Honesty can keep you free for a lifetime. Honesty says, "This mattered, but it was not healthy. I loved the potential, but I lived with the pattern. I wanted it to work, but I cannot be the only one working. I miss them, but I do not miss who I became while chasing them." That last line is important. You may miss the person, but do you miss yourself in that situation? Do you miss the anxious version of you? The waiting version? The over-explaining version? The version that checked your phone with a tight chest? The version that lowered standards just to keep connection? The version that kept asking, "Am I too much?" If the connection made you abandon the version of yourself you are trying to become, then missing it does not mean returning to it. Sometimes missing is just the heart grieving. Let it grieve. Grief is not a command to go back. It is the natural pain of releasing what once mattered. You can grieve and still grow. You can cry and still choose yourself. You can miss them and still move forward. You can feel the ache and still not reopen the wound. This is emotional detachment. Soft heart, strong hands, a heart that can feel, hands that do not keep reaching for what keeps cutting them. And slowly, as you practice detachment, you begin to feel a new kind of peace. Not the peace of being chosen by someone else. The peace of no longer abandoning yourself while waiting to be chosen. That peace is different. It does not depend on a notification. It does not depend on an apology. It does not depend on someone's mood. It does not disappear when someone is unclear. It comes from knowing, "I am with myself now." And when you are truly with yourself, you stop chasing people who require you to leave yourself behind. Chapter 4. Choosing yourself without becoming cold. Choosing yourself is not the same as rejecting everyone else. It is not becoming selfish. It is not becoming hard. It is not punishing the world for the pain one person caused. It is not closing your heart forever. Choosing yourself means you stop placing yourself last in situations where your peace is already paying the price. It means your love includes you. Many people think love means sacrifice. And sometimes love does require sacrifice. But love should not require the sacrifice of your dignity. It should not require the sacrifice of your mental health. It should not require the sacrifice of your voice. It should not require the sacrifice of your standards. It should not require you to become smaller so someone else can remain comfortable. Healthy love may stretch you. Unhealthy attachment drains you. Healthy love asks you to grow. Unhealthy attachment asks you to disappear. Healthy love brings out honesty. Unhealthy attachment brings out anxiety. Healthy love feels like effort with safety. Unhealthy attachment feels like effort without ground. When you choose yourself, you begin to notice the difference. You stop asking only, "Do I love them?" You start asking, "Do I feel safe here? Do I feel respected here? Do I feel like myself here? Can I speak honestly here? Is effort mutual here? Does this connection bring peace, or does it constantly activate fear?" These questions are not unromantic. They are necessary. Because love without self-respect can become a place where you keep giving permission to pain. Choosing yourself also means accepting that your needs are not crimes. Needing communication does not make you needy. Needing consistency does not make you controlling. Needing respect does not make you demanding. Needing clarity does not make you insecure. Needing emotional safety does not make you weak. The wrong person may make your basic needs feel like burdens. But the right connection will not require you to apologize for wanting to be treated with care. This does not mean every person can meet every need perfectly. People are human. They make mistakes. They have difficult days. They carry wounds. They may need time, space, and patience. But there is a difference between human imperfection and repeated emotional neglect. Mistakes happen. Patterns speak. A mistake can be repaired. A pattern must be recognized. A person who values you may hurt you unintentionally, but they will care about repairing it. A person who values access to you, but not responsibility, may keep hurting you and call your pain dramatic. Choosing yourself means you stop confusing apology with repair. An apology says, "I am sorry." Repair says, "I will understand the impact and change the behavior." An apology may comfort the moment. Repair protects the future. Do not be addicted to apologies that never become change. Another part of choosing yourself is learning to walk away without needing to hate. Hatred keeps the person inside your mind. Bitterness keeps the wound active. Revenge keeps you emotionally connected to the same pain. Walking away with peace does not mean what happened was okay. It means you are no longer willing to keep drinking poison to prove you were hurt. You can say, "I did not deserve that. I learned from it. I am choosing better now. I release the need to keep explaining my pain to someone who did not protect it." This is not weakness. This is freedom. Because the goal is not to make them regret losing you. The goal is to stop losing yourself. Some people never truly let go because they are still waiting to be seen. They want the person to understand what they lost. They want them to come back apologizing. They want them to finally recognize the value they ignored. They want the story to end with proof that they mattered. But your worth cannot depend on someone else's regret. Maybe they will regret it. Maybe they will not. Maybe they will understand later. Maybe they will never understand. Either way, you still have to live. You still have to heal. You still have to build. You still have to wake up inside your own life. You still have to become someone who does not need the person who hurt them to confirm their value. This is a deeper freedom. To no longer need the person who confused you to be the one who validates you. You validate yourself by how you choose now. By the boundaries you keep. By the peace you protect. By the patterns you no longer repeat. By the way you speak to yourself when someone does not choose you. By the way you return to your own life instead of waiting outside someone else's door. Choosing yourself is not a one-time speech. It is a repeated practice. You choose yourself when you do not send the message. You choose yourself when you stop checking. You choose yourself when you let the silence remain instead of filling it with desperation. You choose yourself when you stop explaining your worth. You choose yourself when you say, "This is not enough for me." You choose yourself when you rest instead of overthinking. You choose yourself when you accept reality, even though the heart wanted a different ending. These moments may not look dramatic, but they rebuild you. Every time you choose yourself, you teach your nervous system that safety can come from within. You teach your mind that peace is not found by chasing. You teach your heart that love does not require self-abandonment. You teach your future that the old pattern no longer owns you. And gradually, you become harder to manipulate. Not because you become cold, because you become clear. Clear people are not easily controlled by mixed signals. Clear people do not confuse crumbs with commitment. Clear people do not negotiate with repeated disrespect. Clear people do not keep asking for truth from people whose behavior already answered. Clarity is protection. When you are unclear, you stay available to confusion. When you are clear, you can grieve and still move. Choosing yourself may disappoint people who benefited from you not having boundaries. Some people liked the version of you that kept waiting. The version that accepted small effort. The version that explained endlessly. The version that stayed available. The version that gave access even when hurt. When you change, they may call you cold. They may call you different. They may say you are acting proud. They may say you changed. And maybe you did. Maybe you changed from someone who begged for clarity into someone who trusts patterns. Maybe you changed from someone who chased attention into someone who protects peace. Maybe you changed from someone who accepted emotional crumbs into someone who knows hunger is not love. Maybe you changed from someone who feared losing people into someone who fears losing themselves more. That kind of change is not something to apologize for. It is growth. Let people misunderstand your growth if they must. You do not need everyone to approve of the boundaries that saved you. The version of you that is coming will require a different level of access. Not everyone can come close. Not everyone can receive your deepest energy. Not everyone can hear your softest thoughts. Not everyone can be trusted with your open heart. This does not mean you become suspicious of everyone. It means you become discerning. Discernment is not fear. Discernment is wisdom. It says, I can be kind without being available to everything. I can be loving without ignoring red flags. I can forgive without reopening the door. I can care without carrying. I can wish someone well without walking with them. This balance is powerful, because after being hurt, some people swing from one extreme to another. They go from chasing to shutting down, from overgiving to trusting nobody, from being too available to becoming emotionally unreachable, from believing every promise to rejecting every connection. But healing is not becoming the opposite of who you were. Healing is becoming wiser with who you are. Do not let pain steal your softness. Your softness was never the problem. Your lack of boundaries around your softness was the problem. A soft heart with no boundaries becomes a place where others can take too much. A soft heart with strong boundaries becomes a place of power. Stay kind, but stop being easily consumed. Stay open, but stop ignoring what people repeatedly show you. Stay loving, but stop calling self-abandonment love. Stay hopeful, but stop building futures on inconsistent behavior. This is how you choose yourself without becoming cold. You keep the heart. You change the access. The right people will not be offended by your boundaries. They may not always understand immediately, but they will respect your need for peace. They will not make you beg for consistency. They will not punish you for communicating. They will not benefit from your confusion. They will not require you to lose yourself to keep them. And before the right people arrive, you must become right with yourself. Because if you do not know how to sit with your own peace, you may keep returning to people who disturb it just to avoid feeling alone. Loneliness can be painful, but loneliness is not always danger. Sometimes loneliness is the space between the old pattern and the new life. Do not rush to fill it. Let it teach you. Let it show you where you were dependent. Let it show you what you avoided feeling. Let it show you what parts of yourself need attention. Let it show you that your life still has meaning without the person you were chasing. Use the space to rebuild. Return to your body. Return to your work. Return to your health. Return to your friendships. Return to your routines. Return to your dreams. Return to the quiet parts of yourself that were neglected while your mind was busy waiting for someone else. The more you return to your own life, the less powerful the old attachment becomes. One day, you will not need to force yourself not to check. You simply will not care to check. One day, their silence will not feel like a wound. It will feel like information. One day, the memory will come, and it will not pull you back. It will pass through like weather. One day, you will hear their name and feel peace instead of panic. One day, you will understand that letting go did not take something from you. It gave you back to yourself. And that is the deepest gift. Because the person who stops chasing what is not chasing them begins to attract differently. Not by pretending, not by performing, not by becoming unavailable as a game, but by becoming rooted. Rooted people do not chase every passing emotion. Rooted people do not confuse attention with love. Rooted people do not abandon themselves for temporary warmth. Rooted people do not beg to be chosen by people who cannot see their value. They stand in their own life, calmly, clearly, quietly, and from that place they choose better. They choose people who meet them. They choose peace over suspense. They choose consistency over intensity. They choose respect over chemistry without safety. They choose themselves not because they are selfish, but because they finally understand that self-abandonment is too high a price for connection. So if you are tired from chasing, pause. Put down the emotional weight. You do not need to run behind what keeps walking away. You do not need to decode what refuses to become clear. You do not need to prove your worth to someone who keeps treating it like a question. You do not need to keep watering a place that never grows. Let what wants to leave, leave. Let what cannot meet you fall behind. Let what keeps confusing you reveal itself. Let what is not aligned make space. And while it leaves, do not chase. Return. Return to your breath. Return to your standards. Return to your dignity. Return to your body. Return to your life. Return to the version of you that existed before waiting became a habit. You are not empty because someone did not choose you clearly. You are becoming available to yourself again. And when you become available to yourself, your peace no longer waits at someone else's door. It comes home. Ending. A quiet return to yourself. The most powerful moment is not always the moment someone comes back. Sometimes the most powerful moment is when you no longer need them to. When the message does not arrive and you do not collapse. When the silence continues and you do not chase. When the memory appears and you do not surrender your peace to it. When the urge rises and you choose yourself anyway. That is where freedom begins. Not in forgetting. Not in pretending. Not in becoming hard. Freedom begins when you can remember and still not return. Care and still not chase. Miss and still not beg. Feel and still not abandon yourself. You may have chased because you loved deeply. You may have waited because you hoped sincerely. You may have explained because you wanted to be understood. You may have held on because the connection mattered. But now you are allowed to choose peace. You are allowed to stop running behind people who keep making you question your worth. You are allowed to stop asking for clarity from those who keep choosing confusion. You are allowed to stop shrinking your needs to fit inside someone else's emotional limits. You are allowed to stop calling anxiety love. You are allowed to come home to yourself. And when you do, life becomes quieter. Not because everything outside becomes perfect, but because you are no longer giving everything outside permission to control your inner world. You stop waiting for someone else to decide your value. You stop letting inconsistency define your mood. You stop treating absence as a challenge to prove yourself. You stop believing that being chosen by the wrong person is better than being at peace alone. You begin to understand. What is meant for me will not require me to lose myself. What respects me will not make me beg for basic care. What belongs in my future will meet me with effort, not confusion. What is real will not survive only because I keep carrying it alone. So let this be the moment you stop chasing. Not with anger, not with bitterness, not with a need to prove anything. With calm self-respect. Take back the energy you kept sending outward. Take back the attention you kept giving away. Take back the dignity you almost forgot. Take back the peace that was always yours. And walk forward, slowly if you must, with tears if they come, with trembling hands if the habit is still strong. But walk forward, because the life waiting for you cannot be entered, while you are still standing at the door of someone who keeps refusing to open with love. You do not need to chase what is meant to meet you. You only need to stop abandoning yourself for what keeps running away.